Hi, I'm Pastor Bill Vigio of Meat of the Word Ministries, and as a result of the terrible, tragic news that has happened in Newtown, Connecticut, in the Sandy Hook Elementary School, where 20 young innocent children were killed, along with 6 faculty teachers, it has raised up many questions on many issues. And I believe that it's necessary for us to be able to provide an explanation from God's view, from the Christian view, and from scriptural view in regards to why this evil rises up and how does it break up and how do people come to that place, and also where is God in all this, and why in the world would he allow it, and why didn't he stop it? Many people ask those questions, and my friends, there are answers to those questions. So I want to take that up in this particular series. But in part 2, I talked a little bit about the Christmas story in regards to the wise men who came looking for the child Jesus. And I want to follow up on that because I believe it will give you great comfort. As you know, the reference in Matthew chapter 2 talked about how they had come, presented their treasures and gifts to this king, gave him gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and then they departed because they had been warned of God that King Herod would try to kill that child. And then after they leave, God speaks to Joseph in a vision and tells him to leave the region and go to Egypt until you hear from me again, because Herod's going to try to kill that child. And so as a result of the gifts and gold that were given to Joseph, he had all the traveling expenses that he needed. Now, the story talks about the tragedy of King Herod, who was a fool, who had said in his heart, there is no God, and he had no fear of killing those children. And so when he realized that the wise men did not report back to them and show him or reveal to him that child, just out of, pure fear, he went into that area, sent his soldiers to slaughter all those children from 2 years old, the male boys from 2 years old, right on up to the newborns. And the Bible reference was that as Jeremiah had prophesied, there would be severe and bitter weeping and tears and Ramah crying because their children were not, or because their children were dead. Now, that prophecy of Jeremiah, or at least that first part of that prophecy, was fulfilled in the birth of Jesus and during that season. But there's a second part of that reference that has not yet been fulfilled. And I want to read that to you because I believe it will give you great comfort. It's taken out of Jeremiah chapter 31, and I want to begin reading here with verse 15. It says, "Thus saith the Lord, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rachel weeping for her children, and she refused to be comforted for her children because they were not." Then verse 16 tells us, this is the second part now. Then it says, "Thus saith the Lord, refrain thy voice from weeping, and thine eyes from tears, for thy work shall be rewarded, saith the Lord. And they, those children that were slaughtered and killed at that time and in that event, they shall come again from the land of the enemy. And there is hope in thine end, saith the Lord, for thy children shall come again to their border." Notice, God says first off to refrain from your weeping. Stop crying. Stop sorrowing. Have a bigger picture. Have a greater picture. Have a look at the events as God sees them. We live in our temporary circumstances, and we just see death as, the end of all things. But in the mind of God, the end of all things is not in this physical body or in this physical death. And then God promises that they would come back on 2 levels. Number 1, from the land of the enemy. The Apostle Paul said that the final enemy, the last enemy, our worst enemy is death. And God promised that those children who were killed would come back from their death. And then secondly, it says that they will return or come back. He will bring them back to their borders, come back to their home again. Death is not the end of any Christian or anyone that believes in God. The Apostle Paul explained that in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 regarding the resurrection of the dead. But here we have a promise, the very prophecy that was fulfilled in Matthew chapter 12 and chapter 2 and in history, that the event would take place, evil would take place, a slaughter of innocent children would take place. Here we had God saying, don't weep forever. And he said, thy work shall be rewarded. I believe he's referring not only to their prayers and their weeping. We see this nation today turning to God in prayer in abundance. People are now ripe in their hearts. But we also see the work of the sacrifice that was made, those children, those innocent children, temporary in their life, before they reach the age of accountability. God will use these circumstances to bring about great conviction. In the same way that Stephen was martyred in the book of Acts, it had and got the attention of somebody that was evil by the name of Saul of Tarsus, who would break under the witness and the testimony of this martyrdom, who would turn to God and come to God clean, washed and bathed in the blood of Jesus, and would become the great apostle Paul. My friends, there is comfort in the words of God. Even those words sometimes that seem so tragic, God does not leave it there. He is going to finish his work in the land. He's going to finish his work in the earth. He's going to finish his work in the heavens. He's gathered up those children. They are with him in his bosom, with no fear and no memory of what they have gone through. And best of all, they're told and comforted, you're coming back with me soon, and you'll see those that love you. There is hope for your end. I pray every parent, I pray every one of you that believes in God and is concerned and distraught over these children will look to God in a favorable way and not blame him. We'll get into some of these other questions now in the next segment, but take comfort in this. God bless you.